Hey guys, I don't really post much on here, but I'm gonna try and start to. My name's Jalal. Uh, Now we're gonna really go in specifics on where I stay at and such, but my therapist thought it would be a good idea for me to talk about my past and stuff, and it'll help me overcome some of the drama I've been through and whatever other stuff. So I figured I would just talk about my past while I play video games. Well, my name's Jalal. I'm 28 years old, and I've been through a whole lot of dramatic experiences from as long as I can remember. I also done some pretty stupid crap too, a lot. Also done some crazy things. Some stuff I regret, some I look back and say, what the hell is wrong with me? I have, just to go over some of my, symptoms and what's wrong with me, I have anxiety, social anxiety, major depression, I also have bipolar depression disorder, I have a few other stuff too, but I can't, due to my anxiety and my insomnia, I also have a lot of memory problems, so I tend to forget a lot of stuff really easy. Like, oh, I don't remember a lot of dates. Like, I struggle to remember what I did the day before sometimes. But, like I said, talking about a little bit of my past. Like, the early memory I have, I think I was like 4, and I was just hanging out in the backyard, and I kept getting my mom to take off and put back on some kitty's swimsuit, and I remember getting mad because she ended up being busy with something, and I stomped the side of the little kiddie pool, and just all the water just started pouring out of the pool to underneath, into underneath the deck. That's just, it's the oldest memory I have for some reason, and it's so stupid. And, but my first traumatic experience that I can remember,
Got to be careful not to get
I
spotted.
was about 4 or 5 years old. I don't really remember. I was in my room just playing with my little plastic army men, and I remember, I don't really remember anything. All I know is what supposedly happened. My older brother at the time came in, pushed me on the floor, and I'm not going to go full on into it, but I'll just say the R word happened. And I remember I went to go sit down for dinner. I cried out in pain, and I couldn't sit down. And next thing I know, he was arrested. As far as I know, he's still in jail. I don't keep in touch with any of my biological family. I'm also adopted as well, so I don't really keep in touch with any of my biological family, or I try not to. Let's see. My next, I also don't have a lot of good memories of when I was in school either. Like, after the experience, I was a very sensitive child. It didn't take much for me to get upset, and I would cry over the littlest things, and I ended up getting held back in kindergarten because I wasn't I wasn't emotionally stable, and it was just a lot. But yeah, sorry, I'm trying to just go through all this and just talk, but it's not easy. But yeah, school was tough. I was always bullied. I was always the outcast, and growing up, every time I would act up, or I would just be a boy, or just try to do a little rebellion, or I was just being difficult, I would always told, well, you're just like your brother. And it really messed me up. I think I'm still struggling with that. Like, what would have been normal for any other teenage boy, it was always put up to the most dramatic experience. What would be normal for a teenage boy going through puberty to start experiencing things as body changes, instead of getting the talk or anything like that, I get told, well, you already know enough, and just be left alone and just fussed at and being treated like I'm going to be the next sex offender or something like that. It wasn't a really good childhood, and I don't really remember much of it because of it. My mind kind of blocked everything out, and I don't remember much. It was not a good time. It was really not. And it really wasn't. I remember when I was in first grade, I thought it would be funny if I put a worm in the teacher's candy dish just for laughs. And what should have been just a harmless little joke and prank that I could have just got in trouble for, I ended up getting dragged to the police station and shown the drunken cells saying, if you don't act up, this will be where you belong. And I remember just staring at this empty jail cell with just a single hole in the middle where they would put the drunks, and they would just pee and they would just do their business in the little hole in the middle of the floor. But yeah. And I went through a lot of mental and some physical abuse from my parents. And it was a whole lot of mental abuse, and I can say the same about a lot of my family. Now I'm 28 and I have almost no contact at all with any of my family. If I ever need help with anything, I'm on my own. I have no one I can turn to, really. And if I'm in a serious bind and really need help, I'm alone. And it doesn't help with all these issues that I have. And at a young age, I started using books to escape reality, and as I got older and video games became more popular and I got into video games, I started using them as an escape as well, and they also become a coping mechanism for me as well. They help calm me down. If I didn't have video games as a way to escape, I probably wouldn't be here right now. I tried suicide about 4 or 5 times in my life, and they would all fail. I've tried hanging myself a couple times for the cord to break each time, or I would try and overdose on my medication, and for some reason it didn't happen. I would like go to sleep and I would just wake up the next day like nothing happened. So, and my depression ended up getting so bad that I started thinking of what was the point anymore to even trying, because there was no point. I stopped seeing death as a way out, because it wasn't. If there is an afterlife, it would just lead to more trouble, and it would just cause more trouble for my family, because all I felt like I've been is a burden. Whenever I was with my family, I just felt like a waste of space, a burden, and I wasn't good for anything. It's hard for me to keep a job because of my anxiety issues. If I would have known some of the legal stuff now, I probably could have done a couple of lawsuits. I know one time I was working for a business, I'm not going to say the name, and I had a very bad panic attack, and I actually passed out. And when I came to, I was just sitting in the chemical closet, passed out, while they were trying to find a replacement for my job. They were more worried about finding coverage than calling an ambulance. And then whenever I came to and I wanted to call an ambulance, they wanted until they got somebody to cover my shift. I ended up getting a friend, acquaintance of mine, to take me to the hospital, and if I'd known what I would have known now, I could have taken him to court, and I would probably be a very wealthy man. But due to my anxiety, when I think about stuff, I tend to only focus on the bad things that can happen instead of the good. And all I kept thinking was of the future. Well, if I ended up doing this lawsuit, if I ever needed a job again, I might not never find a job again, because they would be scared I would do something to try and sue them too. Because nobody looks for the best in people anymore. They always look for the bad. And it's very difficult. But I know when I was 18, I was staying in a big city that was further than where I was born. And I just turned 18, and I was going to a school that usually on the weekends they would let you go home, and I couldn't afford the bus home all the time, and I didn't want to just stay at the school. So me and a buddy of mine came to an arrangement. I would leave for the weekend and stay over at his place, and the whole time they were thinking it was a family member picking me up. And I started stripping. I was a stripper for about 1.5 years, and my stripper name was Mr. Yum Yum. Actually, those days were actually kind of fun. I did bachelorette parties, private house parties. I never did anything sexual or illegal. I just did private dances and stuff like that. I even done the whole popping out of a fake kick thing a few times, and that was fun. I used to make like about $2,000 a weekend. I would make so much money, and I was in like the best shape of my life. My arms were so big I couldn't even scratch my own back. And I ended up just wasting all the money on video games on video games and getting another console and stuff like this. If I known what I knew now, I wish I would have just put it in a savings deposit and saved it up or used it to help start my credit. Here I am at 28 years old and I have no credit history, and I can't even get approved for a credit card. Like I said, I never liked school. I always felt like I was unwanted, and all the girls always acted like I had some disease, and they would always say, "Ew, he touched me." And I would get sent to the office so many times for stuff I never did. It felt like they were just conspiring against me. And back then, they didn't know what anxiety was, so I had a mental illness that they didn't know about. And having being diagnosed with PTSD from a young age, due to what happened to me when I was so young, it did not make things easy. It's just like my life's a lot better now, but I still have them days where I just don't want to be around anymore. But I don't see the point of ending it, because if it does, I'll miss the next big video game that I'll like, or the next cool anime, and it somehow keeps me going because I found joy in it, and it what keeps me along. Well, the video's getting a little long here, so I'm just going to end it now. And I might do another video tomorrow, or another day, depending on how I feel. I hope everyone has a good one, and hopefully I didn't bring you two down with my depressing talk. I'll try and do more fun stories the next time, instead of focusing on all the bad. This is Joel signing off. Okay, let's see here.